So what I'm going to talk about is the state of the industry for NaaS, and what I'd really like to do is highlight three key industry shifts that are defining the next phase of NaaS. But one of the things I always think about when I come to an event is there a light bulb moment for me? And you think about the light bulb moments, maybe you've had those in your life, and you look back and you say, wow, I wish I would have acted on that, or I wish I would have known the importance of that later on. And so let me just give you a few examples of what I mean by the light bulb moment. When I was a child, my parents worked at Western Electric. Some of you may know that Western Electric was the manufacturing arm for the Bell systems. My mother came to me and she had this little thin object, and she said, "Do you know what this is?" I said, "No, Mom, I don't." She said, "This is something called fiber optics. This is the future." And I was like, wow, that's cool. And so I got her a fiber optic lamp, one of those little lamps that kind of swings around. And I got that, and I found that at home not too long ago, and it just brought back the memories. And years later, I ended up competing with Mom when I was at Sienna, when we sold the 16-channel 2.5 gigabit DWDM systems competing against the 8-channel Lucent DWDM systems. And so anyhow, that was one example. Another example is I was at an RHK conference, and there was a speaker there, and he said, "I'd like to introduce you to this new concept of an internet or a service on the internet. It's called YouTube." I was like, wow, that's cool. So you can watch videos on the internet. And obviously we know what happened with that one. Well, I was at a Comcast business analyst event that Bob Victor and his team hosted just a little bit earlier this year. And at that event, there was a gentleman, Brett Taylor. Some of you may know Brett Taylor. He was a co-CEO of Salesforce. He went on to become the chair of OpenAI. And at that event, early on in the talk, and I don't know if he even remembered this, but he was asked, or he was making a comment about what was going on with AI. And he grabbed his seat like this, and he said, "It's accelerating faster than any of us expected." And I thought, when he grabbed that seat, I thought about these launch roller coasters, right? Where you get on, like we've got one called Verbolten at Busch Gardens in Virginia. And you get on that thing and it's like a Tesla on steroids, right? So, but when I think about that, I think about the pace of acceleration. It's not just once. You get, with that launch roller coaster, you get that jolt one time, but we are experiencing these jolts every 2 months now, right? And in fact, another speaker at the Comcast Analyst event said, we're working on something today that 2 months from now it may be obsolete. That's the pace of change. And the comment we heard yesterday in one of the meetings was, things that are happening 5 to 10 years, we can do in 5 to 10 months now. And it's only going to get faster. So, really AI is redefining this infrastructure. And I think, we talked about NaaS, we talked about the need for on-demand services and all that, but really we're starting to hear more and more evidence that you really do need an on-demand, scalable, flexible, highly capable infrastructure service that can deliver on this need that AI has. And it's really about building that automated network service supply chain. And I think for the service providers and those that support them in the room, it's really about positioning around the fact that AI-ready infrastructure is going to be the competitive battleground going forward. So with that, I just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on how we see NaaS in relation to that AI-ready infrastructure. If you think about NaaS and the competition that's been taking place over the last couple of years, it was really about having the ability to deliver on-demand services, assured network services, a broad portfolio, moving from sort of your simple on-demand Ethernet services to offering a certified service portfolio, being able to interact with partners in the ecosystem, build out that portfolio, assure it with SASE and so forth. It was all around the NaaS for dealing with the key drivers, right? cloud and cybersecurity and so forth. But now going forward, the new competition is around the AI-ready infrastructure, enabling, coordinating, and scaling distributed intelligence. You know, one of the key questions, so if you go back maybe a couple of years when people started to position, I mean, really early pioneers started to position around this, when nobody was really talking about how much AI revenue you have, right? But now we've got companies at the leading edge that are even reporting AI revenue in their financial filings, right? So that's going to be a question, I think, going forward. How much AI traffic do you carry? Which NaaS for AI use cases do you support? How AI ready is your infrastructure? And you know, one of the things I'll comment on is AI ready infrastructure is not being able to deploy DWDM on a particular route, right? We see press releases around that, but it's going to become much more sophisticated. It's going to be we're going to be talking about how do you coordinate with other partners in the ecosystem. That's ultimately where we get. And I think there's a really good opportunity around the value, right, to shift it from the traditional way we think about telecom operators to going forward where the value is about scaling distributed infrastructure or distributed intelligence, being able to support that. So, oh, the color changed. Okay, all right. So I'm looking at my color and that's a color different. Yeah, AI did it to me. So AI positioning is really broadening across our ecosystem. And what I did here was I focused on the service providers, the data center players, the new IXC players that Kevin mentioned. And this is a comprehensive analysis. So when you think about what do we do on the research side, it's really engaging with service providers, technology vendors, industry analysts across the board. And this data is really fresh data where I looked at each individual company and analyzed this and do they have some AI positioning? That is a solution for AI or they're using AI internally. And the other part of the graph is the sovereign AI emphasis, right? And so going back to December 2025, you know, it was around 80 service providers that were positioning around AI, you know, in one way or the other, solutions for or use internally. And that number has risen dramatically in just a few months. And obviously everybody's looking to use AI internally. But it's interesting to see the positioning that's taking place. And the members' positioning is becoming increasingly sophisticated, right? I think that's the key point of this graph as you move from the left to the right. You know, if you go back, it's probably about 18 months ago, you know, when Lumen is a great example, if you think about in our space, Lumen repositioned all around the AI infrastructure and came out with the story, you know, the high capacity and all that, and really had significant influence in driving the debate around that, and especially in the investor space. But it was all around high capacity, or not all around, but a strong emphasis was around high capacity AI connectivity and the DWDM systems that they were building out and so forth, the fiber optics. But I think going forward, we're going to see that broaden, and obviously Lumen has broadened that too. AI ready, or edge AI, distributed inference, the sovereign AI emphasis, everybody's talking about that now. We've heard already, we know about quantum safe coming. That's part of this too. More and more discussion around digital twins, AI-assisted quoting even, you know, right? So there are all kinds of ways in which service providers are transitioning and building their story around this. And of course, one of the key areas that we're going to focus on, Pascal especially, is the AI Federation and the agentic coordination over there on the right. And this is just, I looked through different service providers and analyzed how they're positioning around it. And I thought, you know, what Carrie Gilder over at Colt had put together, I thought that was a great way to sort of frame where the industry needs to go. She wrote this recently, readiness extends beyond connectivity, right? We have to think about it beyond connectivity. We've got to think about security, sovereignty, capacity, scalability, low latency, capillarity, and so forth, right? And then over on the right side is an example of how Lumen has positioned. Basically their view on it, shared here, is setting the standard for AI-ready infrastructure, right? And that's just one example. And I think we're going to see more and more companies position around this, right? I'll just use an example that is not a member, but SK Telecom. Some of you may be following SK Telecom. A really great example of a service provider who's totally repositioned around AI. And at the very top of on their website at one point, they had a pyramid, and at the very top of that pyramid was agentic AI. And then down below that, they had the AI-ready infrastructure down sort of at the bottom, and they've repositioned around solutions for industry verticals that are all AI-related. Some really good marketing around what they're doing. So when we talk about AI infrastructure, it really requires a lot of new capabilities. I won't go through all the details here, but on the left side, you've got the AI workload patterns. On the right, there's the infrastructure capability required. The real summary here is that AI-ready is not just about capacity, it's about placing, scaling, securing, assuring, and coordinating those AI workloads across an automated ecosystem. And automation, what we're doing with LSO APIs and so forth, is really a critical part of that story. So this really is an update on the NaaS picture. When you think about the positioning around NaaS, if you go back, when we launched the original G&E event, it's a global NaaS event, right? And when we looked at the marketing that was taking place around NaaS services, and you try to put together the number of companies, so go back several years ago, there was just a handful of companies that were really highlighting NaaS. And what we've seen is a growing number of service providers positioning around NaaS that includes everything from maybe a small implementation of on-demand capability, cloud connectivity, and so forth, or on-demand services between data centers, to much broader portfolios that integrate SASE solutions, that work with other ecosystem partners and so forth. And now what we're also seeing, obviously, is positioning of NaaS for AI. And so I'm starting to track that number. And again, these are very fresh numbers. This is across the entire community of service providers who are positioning around NaaS and NaaS for AI. So how is that positioning changing? Again, we're moving from left to right, mostly with the increased sophistication, programmable connectivity, AI, cloud, data center interconnect, multi-provider automation. Most of the time when people think about NaaS, they think about it as a retail offering, but we now have members that are strictly focused in the wholesale space that are positioning around NaaS and thinking about that, and obviously wanting to shorten the time intervals to get those services up and running with their partners. Secure NaaS, quantum safe infrastructure being part of that, SASE being integrated into the solutions, agentic and native AI native operations, digital twins, a lot of discussion around digital twins. We heard about that yesterday. We'll hear more. And then the federated NaaS ecosystem. Again, this is where Pascal will dive into it. I mentioned the wholesale NaaS models there. So what are we doing on the research side? We're really trying to help service providers on this journey to give visibility into what's happening from a trends point of view, help increase the positioning, basically shorten your time to be able to make decisions in this environment. And so the market brief that we introduced at G&E in October was really around, was focused on NaaS as the automated supply chain for agentic AI, and that was developed in partnership with Pascal and his presentation there at the event. And the current research that we have is really focused on what does it take to build out this automated ecosystem, and looking at more closely at AI-ready infrastructure. So my suggestion is to work very closely with the committees to define what AI-ready infrastructure is. It's complementary to what we're doing with the things like what Antonella is leading in the AI or the NaaS use cases for AI, right? Define that AI-ready infrastructure, really lead the industry in that, because people want to know, how can I evaluate? If I'm an investor, what do I need to look for, right? So in my view, NaaS really provides the operating model that helps deliver this AI-ready infrastructure, right? So we have this need out there, this need for capacity, this need for proximity, security assurance, programmability, coordination, and all that. NaaS is the right solution to deliver that, and Mplify is the organization that can help you execute on that vision. So NaaS delivers, coordinates, and scales the solutions needed for that. And on the research side, we've got a series of reports that are coming out. The first one in this series, and these are all sponsored reports, right? So if you're interested in the topics, be sure to touch base with me, because I'll be happy to provide an overview of these reports, the ones coming up. The first is the LSO solution provider landscape. This is an update on what we had in our first State of the Industry report looking at the automated ecosystem. And this is a report that really dives into the companies that can help you on your journey. And we're going to be having a webinar on this on the 17th. Martis is sponsoring this, but we do have input from all the key LSO solution providers and how they can help you on your journey. And I'll share some of the data here just as an example. The next one is looking at scaling the NaaS automated network service supply chains. This is really going to be an update on LSO adoption worldwide and the business case, and bringing in other elements of the automated ecosystem that we're going to talk about here at this event. And then NaaS for AI. This is the very, very exciting new report that will really build on those other ones and look at that AI-ready infrastructure and what it takes to deliver that across the ecosystem. So one of the things that we did for the report that's going to be released next week is focusing on 5 dimensions of LSO implementation. So these 5 dimensions are really looking at it from the standpoint of an ecosystem participant. Are you a buyer and seller in this ecosystem, a service provider, a data center player, an enterprise? That's part of the picture. What APIs are being implemented? Business and operational APIs. We've got all that covered in there. And the center of this is really the integration model. When you think about LSO implementations, there are direct implementations, there are indirect implementations with portals and adapters, brokers, hub type solutions that sit within that. We're going to spend time during that webinar next week to really dive into different perspectives on how you can work with the LSO solution providers there. We also cover the service and product payloads. We highlight in the report all of the support that is offered from these LSO solution providers for those various service and product payloads. And very importantly, we also explore the automation maturity and AI readiness. We go into what support is current and planned around MCP and so forth. So just pulling a little bit from the report, this is part of the matrix. This is really the summary portion of the matrix. We've got much more detail behind this. But here you can look at the transaction models that are supported by the various LSO solution providers. And that includes, like as I mentioned, direct adapters, portals, and so forth. We look at market enablement, buy and sell side enablement, the automated functions you can see here, planned and support, and then the AI enablement. So the idea behind this matrix is that it becomes a living source of information, right? It's available to the Mplify community. All of these reports are for the Mplify community. It's part of your membership value. People outside of the community, they can buy these reports, but this is really about delivering value for the members. But one thing I did want to emphasize is this same approach that we're using with the LSO solution providers can be used with the service providers. So the second report that I mentioned on the automated ecosystem, we're going to dive into the same level of detail for the service providers as much as we can, looking across the regions. And that way we can have a much better understanding about how you can interact with different partners in this ecosystem, make that information available, put you in touch with your buy and sell partners. So that really will help address this whole question about LSO adoption. So I'm happy to discuss this, this information because there's a lot of questions around LSO adoption. These numbers, I look at very detailed examples. We follow all these companies through the adoption lifecycle. This includes companies that have implemented maybe with only one buy or sell partner, right? All the way through companies that have implemented with dozens of partners, right? Like AT&T is the one that has the largest implementation. All right, so so with that, I know Kevin's given me the hook. I'll leave you with just some key takeaways as I step down. So thank you very much for your time.